how do you really know that he's the one? How do you pinpoint that he's the one? It's time! Welcome back to another chat with Shansay. I am literally a little too excited for today's video. I'm ready to spill that tea the girlies ask, and I'm ready to deliver. How did I know my husband was the one? How did I know I wanted to have kids with him? We know that he's the one. How do you pinpoint that he's the one that you want to give 20 kids to? Have any coffee or tea because I drank mine a little too fast today, but neither here nor there. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. I think I need a jingle for Chats with Shansay. Maybe something like Chats with Shansay or Welcome to Chat with Shansay or like Chat with Shansay. I don't know, but you guys help me. Let's come up with one because I'm loving these little chats, these little girly moments, and I want to keep them coming. So obviously, we need a jingle. You heard it. Those of you who are new here, my name is Shansay. I am a stay-at-home mom to 4 kids ages 5 and under. I share content surrounding balancing motherhood, marriage, womanhood, and of course, self-care. We do a lot of these girls chat and a lot of vlogs. So I hope you guys stay a while and enjoy the vibes. Any further ado, let's get right into it. I met my husband at a pageant I was competing in. My husband was actually modeling in that pageant. So when you're at a pageant, they sometimes hire male models to like escort the woman down the stairs, and my husband was one of those male models they hired. 52 women competing in that pageant and only 8 models competing in that pageant, which meant my husband would have to take, well, the guys will have to rotate taking women down the stairs. So like he would take me and then he would go back and take the next woman, etc., etc. And this pageant coach just like dumped my husband and I together. He was like, Julian, you know what you're doing. Shansay, go. And he put us in front together. I'm not gonna tell the full story of how we met, but I will be sharing that story with my husband because I actually wanna do it so that we can have both point of views when I share the story of how we met. Within the first few interactions, my husband has already made it very clear that he's into me. He already told me he thinks I am stunning. He already told me he thinks I'm beautiful. Like we are already chatting it up and the chemistry was impeccable. Impeccable. To me personally, I was feeling like, first of all, I pipped him standing on the stairs, like when we were walking in because the pageant girls walked in late. I pipped him standing on the stairs and I was like, God damn, that man is fine. He was wearing a black suit. He had on these like shades and he looked fine, okay? This picture was actually taken 5 minutes after we made. From the moment we made, my husband was staring at me like I am the best thing since sliced bread. From the second we met, he was looking at me like I am the best thing since sliced bread. And his stare was literally intense. I was like, okay, like, all right. Like he was staring at me that intensely so much that I was like, ooh, there are things going on in my butterflies. Ooh, like my stomach was just, it wasn't even a question whether or not he's feeling me. I remember one of the pageant girls was like, yo, that man is feeling you. We've just been talking. So he walks me down the pageant and I come back. He has to walk the other girls down. But in the midst of him walking all the other girl pageants down, I'm standing, I'm waiting my turn, you know, for the pageants, whatever. He's giving me eyes and he's kind of sending like, he's sending signals that he's obviously into me, but he would take little breaks and come to me and just like chat it up with me in a corner. Like we were really connecting that entire night. While we're waiting for the pageants, the queen to be called or the winners to be called, we've been at this pageant for probably like 6 hours now, from like 6 a.m. to like 11 p.m. at this point. We are outside chatting and my husband's like, well, Julian, he's like, hey, we've been here for a very long time. Like you must be hungry. I'm starving. You must be starving. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty hungry. And he was like, well, why don't we just go around the corner and grab something to eat very quick. We were in Washington, D.C., DuPont Circle to be exact. And there was a Subway around that corner. He was like, why don't we just like drop in here and get some food? And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. So we walked to Subway. And while we're at Subway, shit, I don't want to keep smiling talking about this, but damn it, while we're at Subway, this was 10 years ago, by the way, so it's been a couple of years. I know my English sounds great right now, but back then I wasn't the most confident in my English or just like in living in the US, because when we get to Subway, he was like, what would you like to eat? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not very comfortable ordering American food because I almost always order something I don't like, or I will pronounce the names wrong. It must be a cultural thing. Like, I never know what to order. So then he was like, no problem. Why don't you take a seat? I will order 2 different things. Give me an idea of what meets any allergies. I was like, at the time I was allergic to seafood. So I was like, allergic to seafood. He's like, perfect. It's like, anything else I should know? I'm just like, I don't like tomatoes. Cool. So he was like, I will order 2 different things, and you can try both of them and you tell me what you like. Bet. So he ordered 2 different things, like 2 different sandwiches and some Subway cookies, macadamia. That's an important now, just because, like, cookies, are you feeding me? Dessert? Anyways. So he orders 2 different sandwiches. He comes back, breaks them in half, and gives me both halves to try. I ended up liking the one he ordered for himself, and he was like, okay, I'll take a note. From that moment, from that first day we met, my husband has always known what I want to eat. He has always taken initiative to know exactly what I want to eat. He made a list of all the things I like whenever we go out to eat. He's noted them over the past 10 years to the point where right now in our relationship, he always knows what I want to eat. He knows what kind of food I would like on a menu. When I'm out with my girls, like at brunch, I take a picture of a menu, send it to him, and he's like, you're gonna like the salmon on this menu. Like, that's it. So when you talk about how did I know my husband was the one, and that was not the moment that I knew my husband was the one. It wasn't the moment. It's not about a particular thing or a moment that I was like, oh, he's the one. For me, it gradually snuck up at me. My husband and I had long conversations that night. I'm talking long conversations that night. And before that night ended, he was like, it wasn't even before the night ended, it was just like during that night. He's like, I want to kiss you. Can I kiss you? But that damn red lipstick. And I'm just gazing up at him I'm just like love struck, I swear. And he kisses me, and that kiss was engraved in me, baby. That kiss, I've always say, like, the way we met is my fairy tale meet cute. I don't care. Our love story is my favorite love story. But the way we met specifically, yeah, it's my favorite. But in that night, we had so many conversations. And one of the things I specifically told my husband is, at the time when we met, I lived in Utah and he lived in DC, but I was in the dorms in Utah. I was going to Utah State University. So I remember saying, I miss African food. Living in the dorms, I cannot cook African food. So I'm just kind of eating the dorm foods, and I hate it. I miss my home food. And my husband was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. He was like, what do you like? I was like, African food. Like, I explained to him the African food I like. And during that conversation, I also told him, like, I've been in DC for a week now, but because I'm touring universities and pageants, I really haven't had time to do the things I love, which is tour all the monuments. I love the monuments. I love Olivia Pope. Like, I want to go see all the corny stuff in DC. And Julian's like, I was born and raised in DC, so, like, I don't really go to these things. It's so touristy. I was like, oh, that's crazy, because I literally want to. I just haven't had time because I'm touring schools and doing pageants. Next day, when he took me out on a date, he curated a date specifically for me based off of those things I said in passing while we were talking that night. I never told him, like, he didn't ask me, what do you want to do for our date? Where do you want to go on our date? He simply just curated a date based off of all the things I told him. Like, it was perfect. We spent the entire day at the monument. We ended up trying some street food in DC for lunch because I told him I don't trust truck food or street foods. And he was like, you've never had good street food. So he took me to really good street food for lunch. We had like random ice cream. And then in the evening, he took me to an African restaurant in DC called Bukom Cafe for dinner. It was a cute, small little, it was just, the date was perfect. And in that moment, I felt, wow, this man listens to me. When he took me to Subway and ordered that food for me and took care of me on that way, I said, wow, this man is very caring. When he listened to random things I talked about on our date, I said, wow, this man listens to me. I remember I failed my first exam. Again, my husband was not in college. He already graduated. I was in college. I failed my first exam. Not even failed. I'm a straight A student. I was very specific. I was a straight A, straight plus, really. And, you know, I'm talking to him on the phone. We're FaceTiming. We're long distance at this point, and I'm clearly very sad. Like, I'm very, very sad. I'm like, yeah, he's in DC. I'm in Utah. And I'm like, no, because like I got an A minus. I understand, guys. Trust me, being African, you're a perfectionist sometimes. I got an A minus on this test, and I was like, I got an A minus, and like, I'm just heartbroken over it. Again, my husband is in Utah. Mind you, I was also on my period, and I was like, I think it's my period. Like, everything, I'm just so emotional. I feel awful. Like, I was just sad, and it's not a big deal. It's like I was just a little sad. And we've only been dating for maybe a month at this point. It's not even that. I get a knock on my door. And it's a pizza in front of our house because I specifically told him a long time ago that when I'm sad, I like pizza. I was like, pizza is my go-to. Like, pizza makes me very happy when I'm sad. So he ordered me and my roommate some pizza all the way from DC. Just called pizza, figured it out. In that moment, I felt very taken care of. It's like he had every excuse on the planet not to do anything about it because he's not even there. But he found a way to take care of it. When we were long distance in Utah, I remember he got me an extra iPad. So when my phone dies, I have a way to talk to him, but he also got an extra phone so that he can switch through phones when he talks to me on FaceTime because we practically lived on FaceTime. He gets to work, he would get on FaceTime, set his phone up. We just sat together on the phone. I always felt prioritized. I never questioned whether or not this man prioritized me because it was just there. It was a given. And to me, that was a very important attribute to have in a man. So now I've kind of, over the like 2 months, I've collected attributes in my husband based off of his actions, not his words, that are things that I want in a man. He's kind, he's caring, he's a very, very, very good listener, and he prioritizes me. Again, it's not in the things he was telling me, it wasn't the things he was doing. The first time he came to visit me in Utah, again, my friends are not his friends, he doesn't know them. He, I think, had graduated from college maybe like a few years before me. So, you know, I'm in college, we're in a college environment. There was a Halloween party, and I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, you may not want to go to this stupid Halloween party. He's like, what? Of course I do. Like, your friends are going, I'm coming. He met up with my friends and me, fit right in. He was so funny. He was himself. He made such an effort to get to know the people that know me, that like me. All my friends liked him. It was just a very easy thing. And in that moment, I could feel the effort he's putting forth to know the people that know me. I told him the names of my hundreds of siblings. Like in Utah, I literally had like 10 siblings, and he remembered all of the ones that I mentioned to him. He was talking to them like he knows them. He knew all the little details about my siblings because they're important to me. This man not only cares about me, but he cares about the people that I care about. At the time, my little cousin was maybe like 4. He was like a 4-year-old toddler. And do you know how people talk about like, oh, I don't really like kids. Kids are so annoying, blah, blah, blah. Not my husband. And I don't mean that cliche way where he's like, oh, let's take a kid out to play. Like, I simply love the way he talks about kids. He used to talk about kids like they're like regular humans. And he would talk to my nephew and his nephew like they're just like regular adults. He treated them with respect. He didn't act like they don't belong in a space because they're kids. He generally just treated kids with the same respect he treated the adults with. And that also was very important to me. I also remember when we first started dating, we started dating pretty fast. Like after we met, about a week later, my husband was like, listen, I don't know if you have any other situationships or situations going on, but you are it for me. I don't want to date anybody else, and I want to ask you to be my girlfriend. Yes, he formally asked me. He's like, I want you to be my girlfriend. And it was like, he was very straightforward with me. Like, I am cutting off anyone that I was talking to because I was talking to a few people. I'm cutting all of that off because, again, you're it for me and you're who I want. And of course, baby, they were never even a question after I met you. Gone. Cut it. But it was like his honesty. When my husband would say he would do something, if he was like, I'm going to call you back in 5 minutes, he would call me back in 5 minutes. And those might be small things. Being a man of your words is one of the sexiest things and one of the most important attributes to me, because if I can't trust you, I can't trust your words, then a lot of things are just not gonna add up to me. I don't want to question you. I want to simply trust, sit in my energy and let you lead. But I have to see that you have a plan. My husband was the type of guy who took action. I think that's it. He took action. And if something went wrong, he wouldn't try to take away the feelings behind it. I always wanted someone that was emotionally intelligent. Seeing my husband interact with other people, just people who are with no importance to us. Like, we don't know these people, like servers, waiters, like how he tipped waiters, how he interacted with people, how he talked about his exes. Because when we had that conversation of exes, I'm gonna be very honest with you guys right now, I wasn't mature enough to understand the importance and the green flag that he was. Because when he talked about his exes, he didn't have anything bad to say. He simply was like, you know what? That did not work out. And I felt like I didn't give that relationship what I could have given it. It was always, I didn't do this, or it didn't work out because of me. It was never anything bad about the exes. And at the time, my little old mind was like, really? You don't have anything bad to say? But now as an adult, as a grown-up woman, I'm like, wow, that is a huge green flag. It was like there was so much accountability being taken in those moments. And yeah, that's a must. And he took accountability for a lot of what happens in his previous relationships. His relationship with his dad and his relationship with his siblings is something I looked out for. I met his mom very early on because they were actually neighbors. He had a house right next to his mom's house. So I ran into his mom and dad very early on, and they were very funny. They were great. I loved the way his dad talked to him. I loved his relationships, and I overall just loved his emotional maturity. And it really showed in like how he handled the little situations, like how he took care of me when I'm on my period. Like my husband would, do you need medicine? What can I do? Let me rub your stomach. Let me get you a little period pack. Let me get you a heated pad. All of these little things kept adding up over the years. I was 20 when we started dating. And I remember the biggest thing was also obviously therapy. Been in therapy, okay? Period, have been, must be, will continue to be. We obviously have a cultural difference. We have a language barrier, how we fight, how we communicate, all of it, I think, played a big part on me truly knowing this is my person. I could talk to my husband when I'm not my best self, and I can trust that he can receive me. And no, we do not disrespect each other by screaming at each other, but we can share our emotions with each other. I know there could be this huge misconception that a man who's like moody, and men just don't share their feelings. Like men don't know how to share their feelings, but I wasn't into that. I love that my husband came equipped with words to describe how he felt. I love that he took no bullshit from me, okay? When I did something wrong, my husband's gonna bring it up to me and be like, hey, I did not like how you do this. And he communicated his boundaries so well, and so did I. And that was a big deal to me. I'm gonna hold y'all. When the conversation of dowries came up, and again, for those of you who don't know, a dowry is a bride price you pay. I'm from Congo, so the husband pays a price to marry the wife. Remember when we were talking about engagements and proposals, I was like, yeah, in my culture, there's a dowry. Like, I cannot marry you without you paying a dowry. And his reaction was just like, oh, okay, like how much is that? Like, what do I have to do? And I was like, it could be very expensive. Like some countries, and my country, like it could go from like $50,000 to like $200,000. And he was just like, wow, okay. He sat in it. A few minutes later, he said, you are the woman I'm going to be with. You are the woman of my dreams. I will do anything and everything it takes to marry you. So I'll figure it out. Sexier words have never been said. And another thing is, when we discussed like our future, one thing I constantly noticed, it was like my husband talked about me, not only in the present, but in the future tense as well. Everything was us, you know, when our. And that to me, it was comforting. It was safe. It wasn't just that we aligned, you know, in what we morally believed in, you know, in all the little things, but we also really aligned spiritually and mentally. We were mentally there together. We mentally understood each other. My husband and I set our boundaries very loud and clear to each other. And his boundaries to me, there was nothing unreasonable. And he didn't think that anything I said as a boundary was unreasonable. The respect for each other was easily there, and it was just smoothly there. All of those little things are things that did not happen overnight, are things that are collected throughout our years. But the number one thing I will say about knowing if someone is the one, you first have to know what it is that you want. You first have to know what type of person you want in your life. I knew that I wanted a kind, caring, charismatic, funny, spiritually, emotionally intelligent, and good with kids, good heart. I knew the type of man I wanted, and the type of man I wanted was exactly what my husband showed me through his consistent action. I wanted to see those things in a man consistently, not just once, but consistently. And from the day we met, one thing my husband has always been is consistent in his actions and his promises. And that was something that was very important to me. All the other attributes are very important as well. I'm not gonna hold you. I want to be a tall, handsome ass man who had a job, who had motivations, who had ambitions, and who could provide for my family financially, emotionally, and spiritually. And my husband does that well and did that well and has always done that. But he's also shown me that with everything he's done. I wanted a generous man, generous with his time, generous with his soul, generous with his heart, generous with his patience, generous with his finances. I wanted an overall generous man. And from all these little things I'm telling you, I think it's very easy to pick up that my husband was and is a very generous man. But even with all of these things clicking into place, the number one thing that solidified that my husband is the one for me was the overall sense of ease and peace that came from being with him. When you just feel like your soul is happy, and I'm not talking about superficial happiness when you get something you like and you're happy. I'm talking about like a sitting contentness. I'm content. Through good or bad, I'm content. You know, I can't even explain that. It's like no matter what, and we've gone through some tough times. We've had some really heavy losses. I've lost a lot, you know, and through these losses, through these difficult times, I'm always content. I'm always happy. My underlying feeling is joy and contentness. I know that no matter what happened throughout my day, when that man walks through that door, my heart is going to feel giddy. I'm going to feel happy. There's an overwhelming sense of just joy and contentness. I feel at home when I'm with him. That's a good way to describe it. You know, when you come home from work and you have that perfect little blanket, that feeling when you throw a little throw blanket and you sit in your favorite chair, you throw on your favorite show and have your favorite mug of hot cocoa during this Christmas season. That's my husband. That's how he feels to me. And I've had that feeling just there. I had no fear going into life with him. I knew for a fact that if my son grew up to be exactly like my husband, I would be blessed. I knew if my daughters married a man that acts like my husband, that is exactly like my husband, they would be very lucky. Until today, all the little things my husband did, he still does. He still makes me coffee in the morning because the first night we spent together, he woke up and made me a cup of coffee and I really enjoyed it. He still buys me flowers because I love flowers. He still surprises me with date nights. He still looks at me like I am the best thing since sliced bread, because to him I am. He still surprises me with random staycation. Like, my husband has been so consistent in all the things that he was in when we were dating that I still have that feeling. I still have that feeling of giddiness. I still have that feeling of just butterflies. You know, we've been together for 10 years and we have 4 kids. We've been through a lot of life together, and I'm not saying that's like a long time, but it is a long time, and I'm thankful that I'm still obsessed and in love with this man, because I trusted it. I trusted that feeling. I trusted his actions, and I trusted his consistency. So if you're wondering, how do you know he's the one? First, you have to know what it is the one looks like for you. You have to know the type of life you want with, say, the one. And once you know those things, you have to look for those things in that person, not just by what he says, but what he does. And most importantly, trust that feeling of contentness, of joy, of peace and happiness. This may not be how everyone knows, but personally, this is how I knew. This is how I knew that my husband is, without a shadow of a doubt, the man that I'm going to end up with. And look at us. for kids later. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Chats with Shansei. I hope you guys love these videos. I love making them with you guys. And don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. And let me know what you guys want to talk about next. And I will see you on the next episode.